And in this episode today we have a Welsh computer that has long since lost the will to live. We have a dishevelled and decrepit Santa. A lacklustre power supply. We've got a confused Xbox One. We have a Nintendo Switch that can only be played with one hand. And finally we have Loom that doesn't want to shine bright like a diamond. Welcome to the Christmas edition of the YouTube Fixers. So we already did a series in the summer, and I said then that I would be doing specials every now and then, and here we have the Christmas edition. So let's get straight into it. And to kick off the Christmas special, we have Roger from Retro Tech Repair. Roger is one of my favourite YouTubers, and in this episode today he's going to be attempting to fix up a 1980s Welsh computer. Quite unusual. Anyway, over to Roger.
Thank you, Vince. And I thought for this Christmas special, it would be nice to take us back to the early 1980s when so many people were waiting eagerly at Christmas for the arrival of something like this, an 8-bit micro. Today, I'm going to be looking at a Welsh computer that was launched, I think, in 1982, the Dragon 32.
So the first thing that I do is check the plug to make sure it's safe, and then the voltage is coming out of the power supply. Everything looks good there, so now we can take a look at the computer.
So the computer itself isn't in great condition. You can see the stickers come in loose, there's lots of marks on the case. There is a switch at the back, if that's on or off. Oh, it's kind of stuck.
So here we found our first problem. The switch is corroded, and there's no power going into the board. So I removed the power and modulator board from the computer and cleaned the switch with some electrical contact cleaner.
That certainly seems a lot better. So if we now connect our board up to our power supply, switch it on with our newly cleaned and lubricated switch, we can see that 0 volts is on this pin here. On the first pin we have plus 12 volts. On the next pin we have plus 5 volts, and on this pin we're supposed to have minus 5 volts. We don't have anything at all. When I follow that track round, that brings us all the way over here to these 3 pads, which correspond to the voltage regulator that has been blown into 2, and that voltage regulator is an LM7905, so we'll get that out and replace it with a new part.
So I take the old part out with the desoldering tool, and I solder in a new one. Here we have 12 volts, 5 volts, and minus 5 volts. So now we can slip our newly repaired power board back into our Dragon 32, and we'll power it up and see how it goes. It's not going well. And in fact, those ICs are getting really hot. We're going to have to turn it off. So things aren't as they should be here. When I switch the computer on, I get a clicking sound, a buzzing sound, and these ICs run, very hot. So I decided I'd take some voltage measurements on these ICs. They require only a 5 volt supply, so the minus 5 that we've been fussing with before wouldn't be a contributor to the problem. Unfortunately, measuring the voltage to the chips didn't bring us very good news. But as you can see from the meter, there should be 5 volts, and it's 8. So no wonder they are running hot. More disturbing is that I think probably they've been damaged by this experience. So I have a Dragon 32 that has 32K of damaged RAM chips. So I did some research online about what could be causing our memory ICs to be running hot. I didn't find anything specific, but what I did find is a circuit diagram that shows these jumpers, and these jumpers are selected in order to configure the board to work with different types of RAM. I guess there were a number of different types of RAM that could have been used in this board. So here is a picture that I found of the printed circuit assembly of our Dragon, and hopefully you can see it's got the same memory chips, it's the same revision of the board, but these jumpers are in a completely different setting. So I think somebody's been in here and kind of messed around with the jumpers on this board and put them back in the wrong configuration. So let's put the jumpers back as we think they should be. And hopefully this time we should see 5 volts on the supply pins of the memory ICs. So now we have 5 volts on those chips. I think it's worth connecting this up to a TV. So I have the computer connected up to a television via an aerial lead, and there's something there, but I think it's just a signal from the modulator, and there's no welcome screen or command prompt.
So given that I think the RAM chips have been damaged, I downloaded a datasheet for them, and I'm looking at the data in and data out pins using a cheap logic probe.
And I see data is going in there. And now I'm going to look at the data out. And I see that one has no red light, it's stuck low. That one is also stuck low. That one is stuck low. That one is high.
So I think we know where this is going. I'm going to have to replace the RAM chips, and I'm going to replace the 32K chips with 64K ones. Well, that took me absolutely ages. I also switched out the microprocessor, but when I tried the old one in a different machine, it was working fine, so that wasn't the problem. Let's get the whole thing back in the Dragon. Well, that's a bit disappointing.
So I've spent quite a lot of time studying our Dragon here, and there's a little trick you can do. If you type motor on and everything is working but maybe the display isn't, then you hear the click of the relay. And I hear nothing. I think the problem isn't just with the video circuit, otherwise when I typed the motor on command I would have heard the relay click. So when I look at this circuit diagram, in the middle of it is this 74LS 783 chip, and it seems to be controlling communications between the video processor, the microprocessor and the memory. So I think that is something that I should look to replace. It's socketed on the board, so I've bought another one and I'm going to go ahead and install it.
And of course that didn't make any difference either.
But when I look for activity on the processor and on the SAM chip using the logic probe, I see the kind of activity that I'd expect to see. So I feel like these are running. But when I type the command, nothing happens. So now I'm thinking that there might be something wrong with this keyboard.
So with my meter on continuity check, I check each of the keys individually, and then I check continuity between the printed circuit assembly and the end of the ribbon cable.
And when I get to the last one, there's no contact. It's contact here, okay, but it's not going through this ribbon cable, so there must be a break in this ribbon cable somewhere, and if the keyboard isn't working, that would explain why when I type motor on, I'm not getting a response from the computer because it's not seeing the key presses that I'm making. So it's not turning out to be a terribly good day. As I was interacting with the cable, the whole thing just tore away.
I wasn't able to save the original cable, and I ended up making a new one out of a ribbon of jumper cables that I had. I soldered each of the pins individually into the keyboard PCB and then slotted the other ends into the main board's existing keyboard connector. But once everything was connected back up, I still had no response from typing the motor on command.
So not giving up on our keyboard just yet. There's quite a few dry joints on this board, so I'm going to go ahead and fix those and we'll try it again. And now some really good news. I've connected this up, and when I type motor on, the relay clicks, and when I type motor off, the relay clicks off. So that's great news. Not only is the keyboard working, but it means the basic interpreter is working too, and I now can concentrate my efforts on why we don't have a video image, and I'm going to start by looking at our video processor. Now I do see data on some of the lines, which is good. Looking on an oscilloscope here, looks like some of those do have data. However, the DA0 line, which according to the circuit diagram connects directly to the SAM, is permanently stuck high. And when I look at the output from the video generator, on pins 10 and 11, I don't see any signal on those at all. So I think that the next thing I need to be looking at is this video processor. So I'm going to see if I can find a replacement for it. But before I do that, I'm going to have to take the old one out.
So although removing the old video display generator was tricky, installing the new one was pretty straightforward, and we're now able to reassemble the computer and try it again.
Fantastic! Look at that, that's brilliant!
So our Christmas pantomime has a happy ending after all. There's still some work to be done on our Dragon, and I need to modify the logic to access the extra memory. I could probably reinstall the original SAM chip, and there's some cosmetics to sort out too. But all that can wait till the new year, and I'd just like to thank you, Vince, for featuring me on your channel, and wish you and all of your subscribers a very happy Christmas. Vince, it's back to you.
Thank you, Roger. A great start to the Christmas episode here. I can tell the amount of hours of work that went into that and a little bit of scope work. It had it all. So I hope you enjoyed that one there. Next up, we have Steve from Stes Sticks Fix. I don't think Steve's done a video that I haven't watched yet. They're all a nice length, nice and easy to watch. And he's a lovely, humorous guy as well. So in this episode, he's going to be fixing up something very festive. So Steve, over to you.
Yay, he's been! Well, thank you, Santa, for this wonderful gift. I just want you to take a second just to appreciate the box. It is wonderful. Action Santa, with electronic music, simulated walking, action arm rings bell, electronic circuit board, plays Jingle Bells, Joy to the World, Der Tannenbaum, and Silent Night. And yeah, I mean, the box, it's lovely, isn't it? But just... So look at the sweet little Santa on the front, and then prepare yourselves for this. Oh my. The problem with this is that it doesn't work. It's got no power, according to the Santa's eBay listing. I mean, it is old, so I don't know how I don't even know if I can get into this thing. I've got no idea. But I presume the batteries go in here. Oh, it's got batteries in. I can't actually see a switch to turn it on. Maybe... Let's take those batteries out. Oh, it's quite low, isn't it? 1.2. Imagine if that's all it was. Someone put some batteries in that didn't work. I mean, Santa put some batteries in that didn't work. 1.55, that should be fine. Right, let's pop those back in and see if that makes any difference. Right, we're still not doing anything. But like I say, I don't know if there should be an on-off switch. Shut up with the jingle bells. This feels so wrong. Let's take Santa's pants down. Right, I can get to some screws there, so I'm gonna... Oh god, this is awful. Ah, there is a switch, it's there. So how do you get to that switch without pulling his pants down? Right, well, even switch that still isn't doing anything because I've left the batteries in. Oh god, his head. Oh god. I was looking at the battery contacts. In fact, I'm not convinced they're making a connection. Oh, please stop the jingly bells. Right, let's shut this bell up. There. Right. I don't think that these batteries are making a proper connection in there. So from there to there we should have 1.6 volts. Yes. But then we're getting nothing from there to there, so that's the problem. I think I can see the problem. It's meant to have like a little spring here, isn't it? In fact, there is a spring there. It just looks like it's been pushed down. Let's try and lift this up. Wow, do you know what? I think that might be all it is. Well, Father Christmas wasn't going to make it difficult for me, was he? Let's try that. Right, let's see if we've got 3 volts now. Yes, we do! 3.16 volts. Right, but it's still not doing anything, is it? Oh, hang on. Ah, oh my god! Wow. Hello? Yes, Father Christmas? You know this thing you gave me? I'm pretty sure it's possessed. No, I'm being serious. Yeah, it's demonic. Yeah. Yes, I would like a refund. Alright, well, let's put his trousers back on and put it all back together, and then we can wallow in the delightful sound and joy that this thing will give us all. Good news, everyone! It's still not working properly. So it's not doing the simulated walking, which I'm guessing is these little wheels on the bottom. He's supposed to shuffle along, but he's not doing. Which, to be honest, I'm kind of grateful for, because I think that will make this even more terrifying. But I noticed some screws on the bottom, so I am going to open them up and just have a look inside here. Maybe it needs re-greasing or something, I don't know. But let's get the blue mat back out. Sorry, Dave. Let's open up his shoes. Made in Taiwan. Nice. Right. Well, it's very primitive. In fact, what even makes those move? They're just... There's no mechanism. Oh, okay. So they are just rollers. So the mechanism's inside here, isn't it? Right, I'm going to turn this back on, and I'm going to mute it so that I don't scare any children. And I'm going to see what the mechanism does. Oh, there we go. It does work. Dashing through the snow in a one-horse open sleigh, over fields we go, laughing all the way. Bells on bobtail ring, making spirits bright. What fun it is to laugh and sing a sleighing song tonight. Hey! I'd like to apologise to anyone who may have nightmares. Merry Christmas, Vince. Merry Christmas, everyone. Ho ho ho.
Ooh, poor Santa. The years have not been kind, but well done, Steve. You managed to get him working again. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, that is debatable. But anyway, next up we have Scott, all the way from New Zealand. Scott's YouTube channel is called Def Poms Electronics Repair. Scott really knows his stuff when it comes to electronics, and in this one here he's working on a power supply which is not outputting properly. So let Scott show you how to fix that.
Hello. Merry Christmas. Thank you very much, Vince, for dropping me on your channel once again. I'm doing a little repair which hopefully you'll find interesting. It's a very common fault, and a lot of people would have come across this particular fault. Make sure you stick around and check it out. Today I'm going to fix this power supply brick, well, hopefully anyway. So I'm going to load test it. We'll see how the output is under load. This is supposed to be 12 volts at 4.16 amps. Test it at 12 volts, hopefully, and see if the voltage drops. Load it up and see how it handles before we repair. We'll try and fix it. And we'll load test it again after that and see how it handles the loading after that point and see if the repair was successful or not. So we'll get sunk into it. So there's some crocodile leads here. What I'll do is I'll put these up onto my signal electronic load and we'll chuck on the load tester and then we'll see what happens. Right, let's power this thing up. Right, power supply is doing 12.4 volts. There's no load on it right now and you can see it's a little bit unstable. Let's turn the load on. So drawing 100 milliamps, it's dropped down very slightly, but and you also see it's not very stable, it's jumping around quite a bit. So let's increase the current. So that's 200 milliamps, doing 12.2 now. 300 milliamps, 12 volts, 400, 11.8, 500 milliamps, 11.6. Look at that, 1 amp is doing 9.7 volts or so. 1.5 amps, 7.7 volts, 2 amps, 6.3, 2.5 amps, 3 amps, 6.5 still, so it seems like it's collapsed to 6.5 or so. But there's a really good chance what this has got is a huge amount of ripple. The 2 amps is only half the rating of the power supply and it's down at 8.6 volts here, so pretty bad. That's why it's not performing like it should. So I've already opened this casing up because I was investigating it yesterday. I'm going to show you to get into these things. Now there's different techniques. One way is to cut the casing. I don't recommend that as a first choice. The way which will often work is if you get a little hammer. What you can actually do is go around and just tap on the joint all the way around, and sometimes you have to do it quite hard. Sometimes you can flex them, you can actually push on the sides, depending if there's much clearance inside, you can actually flex things and it'll also help break them. And once you get a corner starting to move, you can get a spudger in there and you can get in there and just open it up a little bit. Try and get the lighting on it so you can see. You can get it opened up. Now sometimes you might find one corner is moving, the other corner will not budge. That happens. What I found is a good way to get that close to the corner or halfway down, something like that, and then you squeeze this side and that then pops that one open. That helps as well. Now, a bit of a disclaimer, when you're dealing with these power supplies, they can hold voltage in them. Right? There's a big capacitor in here, and it potentially could be 350 volts on that capacitor, so don't touch anything until you're sure the capacitor is discharged and it's safe to touch, right? Because one of these heat sinks could even be live. Sometimes the heat sinks could be live, you don't know. I've seen things like that in the past where heat sinks have been live. Before we touch anything in here, we're going to see if that capacitor is discharged and see if we're safe. Because you don't want to zap yourself, it will give you quite a jolt if you're not careful. There's also a broken lead on a capacitor. 4.7 volts. Check this out. See that? It's got a broken lead. More than one fault. So we'll have to fix that as well. So we're only down to like 4 volts, so we should be fine. 4.7 volts on that one. Now the other capacitors on this end here, nothing there. Okay, we're safe. Should discharge it. Just do it the hacky way and just short it out. Thinking I could resolder that leg, but then I may or may not need to replace this capacitor. Just give it a long time to get a chance to discharge, because they do have like a memory effect. And let's measure that capacitance. I'm just going to use my bench meter. You won't be able to see it. I'll tell you what it is. This is saying about 27 microfarad dissipation of 100 ESR 5 kiloohms. I think that might be a little bit excessive. So it looks like that's probably a bit fried. And we'll try and hook that out of there somehow, because it's got elastic holding it down. Yep, it's got a bulge in it. You can see there it's also got a slight bulge in the top, so yep, definitely gone. 100 microfarad, 400 volt. So first we'll reinstall this capacitor here, 400 volt, 120 microfarad. It's a Rubicon branded one, so 105 degree rated, that sort of stuff, so it's still good specs. Let's just locate it, resolder that leg. That should now hold it in place. We'll do the other one. One capacitor done. That'll make a difference for a start, but that's not the only problem. Don't forget to click like and subscribe. Now over here we've got 3 more capacitors, and you can see those are also bulged. They are all going to be bad as well. So they're all in parallel anyway, so it doesn't really matter about values, but I think they're all the same value anyway. So what are these things? 1000 microfarad, 16 volt. Yeah, all the same as expected. 1000 microfarad. Obviously check polarity, kind of important. Physically they still fit, that's important. Now because it's right next to this heatsink, what I'm going to try and do is actually, when I solder them in, is try and lean them away from it just a little bit. Try and get some more spacing away from the heatsink to try and minimise the direct heat into the capacitors. Same way as I did on this one here, I actually shifted it down very slightly to get that end away from the heatsink very slightly. So you can see the capacitor here, you can see that's bulged on the top. A bulging capacitor is like a dead giveaway. It's definitely bad. It's the simplest way of determining a capacitor is bad is just by looking at it. Because if you see a bulge, you're definitely going to be replacing it. But no bulge does not mean that the capacitor is still okay. No bulging could be a sign that it's leaked at the other end, or it could just be dried out, not exploding. It happens too. I do actually keep meaning to do like a video series of diagnostics repair stuff. I kind of want to do something like a tutorial kind of thing, so that is my plan, is to do that and actually have a bit of a teaching series, I suppose, of how to diagnose things and what things to look for. So this is definitely in my head, it's something I want to do. Teach you how to check out things and diagnose what's wrong. I'm just pushing the capacitors down and getting lined up where I want. It's actually got some resistors across the output here as well. Well, resistor positions, there aren't actually any resistors installed because I realised I didn't really need them. I'm going to resolder these joints because I'm not comfortable these are okay. Even one of the bridge rectifiers is looking a little bit dodgy as well. Might just redo these two. I think with every sold it does, sometimes it will look like a bad joint when actually it isn't, but then also it could be a joint which is on the way out. Even the ones on the AC input jack look a bit dodgy. It's usually physical things, you know, where it's got like a bit of a point where it's got a physical stress on it. The joints tend to crack more easily with lead free, just don't have the same level of robustness. I'll clean the flux off and we'll put it back together. So as I was gunking in this capacitor here, I realised there's another capacitor just down here next to it, so I'm replacing that one. And that's a 22 microfarad 50 volt. I'm putting a 63 in. That way all the capacitors are done and you don't have to worry about it. It's just finished. It's as good as new, hopefully. I'm going to try and lean this one away from the heatsink as well to give it a bit more life. Let's test these capacitors to prove they're bad before we do the testing of the power supply, make sure it's fixed. So this is the, what size is that one again? That's 100 microfarad, 400 volt. 38 picofarad with dissipation 2.7, so definitely bad. Next one, this is 1000 microfarad, getting 107, dissipation of 0.9, definitely bad. I mean, these are bulging, so we know they're definitely dead anyway, but this is interesting to see what the actual results are of the tests. 50 microfarad, dissipation of 1. 47 microfarad, dissipation of 1. And last one, which we haven't tested yet, and it may even still be okay, we don't know. I just want to replace it. 20 microfarad, dissipation 0.07. This is 22 microfarad, so it's actually looking pretty close. Let's do ESR. 5.8 ohms, probably alright still. That one's probably not too bad. Maybe slightly weak. But anyway, it's brand new now, so it's all good. So, moment of truth. Let's retest it. We'll start 100 milliamps and we'll turn the power on. Hopefully get 12 volts, doesn't go bang. Okay, we've got 12 volts and didn't go bang. That's a good start. And you can already see this voltage is much more stable than it was before. Before it's jumping around a lot more. So we'll turn the load on. 12.39, that's looking fine. Let's wind it up. Half an amp, 12.3, 1 amp, 12.2, 2 amps is 12 volts, 2.5 is still 12 volts, 3, 11.9. You know, these connections aren't wonderful, so we'll get some drop through those potentially once you get to these higher currents. 4 amps, 11.7, that looks absolutely fine. So I wind it down to say 3 amps and just leave it running 3 amps a little bit. Bit of a load test on it and see how it handles it for a longer period of time, but that's looking promising. So on here we can actually monitor the voltage and see how it's handling it with the load. Just a bit of a ripple there. But it's looking fine. So it's been on for now for a couple more minutes and it's still holding just fine, no issues with it dropping off. Doesn't feel hot, I can't feel any heat coming out of it yet, so it's not like it's struggling too much or anything like that. So I'm pretty confident now I can glue this thing shut again and put that back into service. So that's excellent. So that's a nice successful repair. That's always good to have. Don't forget to click like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next video. Bye. Back to you, Vince. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Scott. It was really interesting to see how when the load was increased, the voltage was dropping and dropping, and all because of faulty caps. And another thing, I never heard of dissipation before. I only ever checked caps for the rating, the capacitance, and also for ESR. I never knew anything about dissipation. So there we go. I learned something new, and hopefully others did too. Now, next up, you got me, and I'm going to be trying to fix up an Xbox One S, which I bought from eBay. Will it be fixable, or will it be an eBay special? Let's find out. So here it is, put into an Xbox Series S box. So obviously they replaced their old console with the newer generation one. Now, looking at it, it does seem to be a bit on the grubby side. You can see something's been spilt down here. But when I have a look at the back here, it hasn't been previously opened up, which is fantastic. So I'm going to be the first one in here. Looking at the HDMI port, I haven't zoomed in on it, but it doesn't seem to be really out of place. So yeah, let's plug it in and see what happens. Now I'm just going to show you the listing. While I do that, let's make it a little bit more festive. Right, eBay. I paid £45 plus £6.46 postage, and there's absolutely no write-up whatsoever. Check this out. It just says Xbox One S 1TB gaming console white 40. That's it. There's no other description whatsoever. So let's plug it in and see what it's doing. See if it's going to power up. Yes. Is it going to turn off? Oh, no. Sounds a little bit noisy. Is anything going to display? No, but it has been recognised. So I don't think it's a HDMI problem, unless it's a retimer chip, but it definitely went off. Let's unplug that. So that's the black screen there. Plug it in again. Is it going to do it? Yeah, you see it's gone lighter. And it is staying on. I'm just going to see if it's going to take a disc. Yes, it is. And it's spinning up, and it's still on. I'm going to have a quick search on Google to find out what a blank screen, because this isn't no display, this is something different. This is just like a black screen. I'm just going to turn it off. I'm going to Google that. I think it might be a hard drive issue. Right, okay, there we go. Now, it's saying that it's a software issue. So I'm going to put this into safe boot mode and let's see if it displays then. Maybe they had an issue when they were updating it and they didn't bother taking it any further than that. They might have just gone out and bought a new £250 Xbox Series S. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down the eject button and the sync button just down here, so this one, and then turn it on. I'm going to keep these two held down until I hear the second turn on beep, and then I can let them go. That should put it into safe mode. So let's hold these two down now and turn it on. I'm going to keep holding them until we get the second beep. There we go. Now I can let go. Let's see. There we go. Troubleshoot. I'm on the troubleshoot menu. Fantastic. Right, let's plug in our controller. Okay, I felt it vibrate. Let's just see if it is going to keep sync. Yes, it is. Continue. No. Right, okay, I'm going to reset this Xbox. Keep games and apps, remove everything. Let's do keep games and apps to begin with, and if it still doesn't work, then I can try remove everything. Now I'm going to get myself a network cable because it will need to be updated again if it does go through. There we go. Nothing like filming a Christmas video in November. Oh, look what it says here. You need this update to use your console, but something went wrong. Now, okay, let me check network. Alright, it says it's connected to the internet, so there must be some problem with the inside of it. Maybe liquid's gone into that side bit there. So I tried to reset it a couple more times using wired and wireless, didn't make any difference. I also tried to do the offline update using a USB stick with OSU 1 on it, downloaded from the Xbox site. That didn't make a difference either. It kept failing when it was verifying the updates. So I am now taking it apart in the hope that I can find some damage on the inside and fix that and get this Xbox working again. Oh, look at this. Oh, that's serious water damage down here. Well, not water, but liquid. Yeah, right, okay. Look at it all round here. Do you know what? That little button was a bit sticky to press, the sync button. But yeah, look at the state of that. Right, I'm going to strip this down completely and let's have a look at the board on the inside. Okay, it's not actually that bad. It seems like the case got most of it. But on this front board here, we've definitely got staining at the bottom here. And also around this area here. Let me zoom in and show you both. So you can see where all the staining is on here. So we're going to clean that with some IPA. Just in case somehow this board is putting a short on it, which it's not happy with. And also I'm going to clean up this area here. And we'll see what's going on here after it's cleaned. It doesn't actually look too bad. The chips and stuff all look okay. This is what I'm going to use. So I've given that quite a good clean now. I'm going to put it back together and see if it's behaving any differently. The worrying thing is, although I did see that there was plenty of that syrupy stuff on the board and it was very hard to remove, it didn't look like there was actually anything burnt or shorting or anything like that. So I'm not really sure if that's going to have made any difference or not. But let's try it. Right, this is the furthest I've got it through. It's now verifying at 64%, 65. It's still moving, which is great. So what I did this time is put the USB stick in the back this time. So I've got the USB stick just back here. And I press and held the eject and the sync button. And then I pressed the power button. I kept holding the sync and the eject button down, this time for 3 beeps. So the first beep is when you actually turn this on here. Second beep is when this comes to life, and then the third beep, it bypasses that screen, the troubleshoot menu, and then it goes straight to preparing the console. And this time it seems to be going through, but it could be just coincidence. It might crash now any minute. 100%. It's turned off. I've never got this far. Brilliant. Now it's applying the update. It looks like it has done it. Fantastic. So what I need to do is I need to set this up. Yeah, with my account. It looks like it's worked. And I need to change over the thermal paste and also give the case and everything a really good clean, because remember, it's all horrible here with all the syrupy mess on it. Right, so I've given the plastic cases a nice good scrub now, so hopefully all those stains will have come out of it. And as well as that, now this little button here feels nice and free. So this little sync button is just on a kind of concertina bit. That's nice and free now. So you're probably expecting me to show you this working now, but I can't, because this thing is showing me no joy whatsoever and it's still not working. It downloaded Forza 3 no problem at all, and then I thought to myself, let's see if it will turn off and on again, and then shut it down, went to turn it on, and since then it hasn't been working. But this time I've got a complete black screen, and things like the sync button now, when I press the sync button, it's not doing anything at all. That isn't flashing whatsoever. So this is definitely a hard drive issue. So what I'm going to have to do is swap the hard drive out on it. I can't hear any clicking or anything coming from the hard drive, but I'm almost certain it is a hard drive issue. So I'm going to reuse a 1TB hard drive out of an old Xbox, which needs various things doing to it to make it nice again, but the hard drive is working. I'm then going to get the faulty hard drive out of the Xbox One S, and I'm going to pop it into an external caddy. I'm going to try to see if I can get rid of this faulty sectors, and maybe this can be used as an external drive on my son's Xbox, and at least then it will still be able to be used, hopefully, for something. So next time you see this Xbox One S, it will have the replacement hard drive in it, and hopefully this time we will be able to update the software and get it working properly. Well, let me show you that 3 beep technique. So we're going to be plugging the OSU 1 into the back there, and now we're going to be holding down the sync button down here and the eject button. Turn it on here. I'm still holding down the sync and eject. That was 1 beep when we turned it on. That's 2 beeps, we're still holding, so that's put the screen on. And then after the 3rd beep, we let go, and you see here it says preparing console. So let that run through. I'm going to load up this game, and then I can show you it working. At long last, joy has been restored to the world. So the Xbox is working perfectly now. This is Forza Horizon 3. So all along, the problem was with the hard drive. There was nothing wrong with any of that gunk on the board. That wasn't causing an issue whatsoever. And the very time it worked was just coincidence. But still, it needs to be taken apart because the hard drive needed to be changed, and now the Xbox is looking nice and clean. So while before it looked a bit sorry for itself. So that is it for this section of the video. Hope you enjoyed it. And continuing on with the gaming theme, next up we have Wayne from Wayne's Noob Repair UK. Now, Wayne's channel is about him learning this hobby or this trade. So you're going to be learning alongside with him, learning his mistakes, sharing his successes. And in this one here, he's working on a Nintendo Switch where one of the Joy-Cons keeps disconnecting. So let's hand you over to Wayne.
Hi Vince. Thank you very much for having me on the channel. Hello to all your subscribers. We've got a Switch to look at today. It's a relatively simple one. So this is what we've got. And as you can see, both of the Joy-Cons are registered. I can take that one off and it will register. But of course, There you go. So it loses its connection. So we need to take a look at that. Initially, I'm going to give both the pins on the Joy-Con itself just buried in there. You can't really see them. I'll give those a clean, and I'll give the pins buried down inside there where the connection happens. I'll give those a clean as well. What we'll use to give them a clean is a Vince inspired brush. I've just cut that on a bit of a bevel. These things are absolutely fantastic. I think Amazon, they're like 12 quid for a pack of 30 or something like that. So we use some 99% IPA, put a little squirt in there and just get in and initially try and clean the pins. What I'm trying to do is get as much of the brush in there as I possibly can. So we give that a bit of a clean and we'll do the same. I'm not worried about the console being turned on, as it is 99.9% IPA, I believe, so it's as pure as you're going to get it. But initially I will always give anything I get a good clean, which is going to help us with further diagnosis. So we've given that a clean. It's registered. Can we give it and we appear to have solved the issue? Fantastic. That was a really nice simple one, but as an added bonus, we're not going to stop there. That's a great little fix, fantastic little fix. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the console apart, because in order for this to be resold, I need to give it a clean and change the thermal paste. You've all seen these taken apart before. So hot air station is on. We'll go with 30% airflow, 160 degrees, and we should, in theory, after a couple of minutes, be able to gently lift up and away. So that one's come away, that's very nice. This one, not so easy. Just wave your hot air over it. Just be careful not to leave your heat in one space for too long. It's not always going to be successful doing this, but on this occasion, I believe we were. Fantastic. So what we're going to clean, we're going to clean this side, we're going to clean that side, we're going to give it some nice new MX4, if I can find my MX4. There we go. MX4, again, you can find this on Amazon. Johnson's Baby Cotton Buds to clean off. And we'll just give that a go. Just get the bulk of it off there. What we don't want to do is leave chunks laying around the board, so always a good idea if a chunk comes off like that, move on. Once you've got the bulk off, tiny little squirt, a little goes a long way, and there's something quite satisfying. Fantastic, great stuff. And then we will put, as Steve from Tronics Fix says, the perfect amount of thermal paste on there. Give that a wiggle, get it seated. There we go. It turns on. Yeah, that's fine. Great stuff. That looks successful to me. So there we go. Fairly simple, fairly easy. A fix that pretty much anyone with a precision toolkit can take on. Thank you very much. for having me on, Vince. It's been an absolute pleasure. Hopefully your son is going to finish those dog drawings, and look forward to seeing the finished product. Thank you very much, and thank you to all your subscribers for bearing with me. Great stuff. Take care of yourselves and each other, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks for doing that, Wayne. And since you asked, here it is, the dog painting by my son. He's only 12. That's the reason I showed it in one of the videos, because I think he's done a damn good job. He just needs to finish off now. It's nearly there. It's just that he did the background after he did the actual dog. So he just needs to go around the edges now and do all the fine fur and stuff like that. But the dog is just about done, and he signed it as well. Ben, 2021. Hopefully that will be the first completed painting of many in his lifetime. Also matches my merch top. In fact, that could be merch, couldn't it? The My Mate Ben dog. Anyway, next up we have the final one now of the Christmas special. We have Mike from My Retro Watches. I'm a big fan of Mike. Me and Mike chat quite a bit over the phone, and we put the world to rights and moan about the YouTube algorithm and all things YouTube related. Now, Mike's channel is all about watches, normally retro watches. He also does newer watch reviews as well. Now, when you're not used to working on watches, you think it's easy because you're looking at a big screen. Watches are incredibly hard to work on. One little twitch, one little sneeze, and that's it. They go everywhere, and then you spend the next hour on your hands and knees on the floor looking for parts that are so small, some of them look like specks of dust until you look under a microscope and you realise it's a screw or it's a little wheel of some description. So in this one here, he's going to be working on re-luming hands. Lume is what you have on the hands of your watch to make it light at night, and a lot of them only have a certain life before the lume goes, and they can start to degrade, fall off, leave dirt on the dial and stuff like that, and all look a bit messy. So yeah, over to Mike, and I hope you appreciate the intricate work that goes into working on these things.
Thanks for inviting me on the Christmas special, Vince. I have to say it's really hard finding mince pies in the middle of August. Hello everybody, my name is Mike. The channel's called My Retro Watches. I restore and repair vintage watches, which if you've followed Vince's channel quite a lot, you'll know it's not the easiest of things to do. So rather than try and show you a restoration of a watch, I'm going to show you how to lume watch hands. So let's cut to the bench. I'll show you the tools and the kit we need to do the job. Okay, this is the watch we're going to be re-luming today. It's a very nice vintage Seiko. This is from the 70s, and I can date it from the code here. So it's 1976, and it's March of 1976 to be precise. So it's a few years old, and you can tell from those hands there that they're looking a little bit worse for wear on the lume. Now, before I carry on, I have to say, if you're going to try to do this yourself, you've got to be particularly careful with lume. You've got to understand what lume is on the watch. Now, certain vintage, certainly from pre-60s, they used tritium and radium, which is radioactive, and you don't want to be crumbling that off the hands at all. That stuff has got a half-life of I don't know how many thousand years, so it's okay while it's on the watch, but certainly not while it's in the air. So just be warned. Sometimes, certainly on Swiss watches, you can tell down here it'll usually say a T or an R, and that's a bit of a giveaway. It does actually look a little bit different too, but to my knowledge, Seiko never used any of that anyway, and because this one's way in the 70s, radium was completely outlawed by that time. So we need to get the watch out of the case. Straightforward. This one's a bit different to most watches. Seiko have lots of different ways to get in. And on this one, you remove this ring, and there's like a gasket, a metal gasket here, and the whole thing then comes out. So I'm just going to turn it over. I'm going to lift it off. And the crystal, which is acrylic, it's a flange crystal, it covers the whole thing, will be stuck on with that gasket there. I'm just going to pry it. He says, came off very quickly. Now, I don't need to get to the movement on this one. If I did, that's a whole new episode, because I'd have to prod into here to a little lever to pull it out. But all I want to do now is set the hands so they are together so that I can remove them. And to remove the hands, we want to use a piece of plastic. I'm just waiting for that second hand to get a bit further around. So put a piece of plastic to protect it. I use hand levers. Oops, got the other one the wrong way around. And I'm going to put those under all the hands. And I'm just going to sort of push up or lever up, and you can twist as well. And then you tend to feel when they've gone. There we go. So the hands are now free. And we can get on with the rest of the job. So here we are on the microscope, looking a bit closer, and I'm now wishing I didn't pick this watch because the hands are pretty rough. I'm not so worried about the loom right now, but they're a bit scarred and scuffed around the centres, which is a real shame. I don't know how that would have happened over the years. Maybe they've been touching, or somebody's just been pulling them off and making a right pig's ear of it. But at least we are under severe magnification, and with the naked eye you're not really going to see that. But what we're looking at with the hands themselves, this is the loom and this is the rot. So that is where moisture has managed to get in and kind of rot onto the loom. Some of it is actually starting to tarnish as well around the outer rim there. I can tidy that up a little bit, but I can't get it perfect. So we need to remove the loom, and that's usually the hard part. So you need to turn the hands over. So the idea is to usually use a bit of pegwood. This is pegwood. I don't think pegwood's going to work on this one straight away. So I'm going to hold down the hand with the pegwood, and I'm just going to use my tweezers gently just to start it off. Usually once you start it, it starts to come off. There we go. You see it crumbling? You can also dip them into acetone, I believe, and that will loosen it all up. I've removed as much of the loom as I possibly can. The hour hand, which is this one, I actually did in acetone in the end. I've actually polished them as well, just using a little special tool I've got. And you can see that that isn't loom, that is just corrosion, unfortunately, because these hands are plated. So turn them over. So now we've just got to mix the new loom up and apply it. So I'm going to mix the loom, but I better show you the powder I'm going to use. So I use this stuff. You can get this on eBay. This is a fine powder that is green in colour when it glows. Lots of different colours you can get nowadays as well, but obviously I'm just going to stick to the green. So I've got this little dish. I need to put a little bit of powder in the dish, and then I'm going to use matte coat, which is just a modelling coat. It's like I always say it's like a bit like nail varnish, to be honest with you. It's just to bind it all together, and I'll use an oiler with a fat point on the end just to mix it all up. Okay, I have about the right consistency. Sort of, I always say it's like pancake mix or something like that, really. I'm hardly going to use any in comparison to the amount that I've mixed up as well. So now it's time to apply the mix, and I'm going to use the same oiler to do that. So I'm just going to put a little bit on. Offer it up to the hand and gently drag it across, and we're kind of just letting it run in until it's sort of covered everything. That's just about there. And we've got an air bubble, which is not that desirable. It's still there. That's going to annoy me. Go to this hand. And the same applies. You don't want to put too much on. If you put too much on, it'll go through to the other side. So I'm reasonably happy with that. Yes, I've got a couple of air bubbles. Hopefully they won't show. So here we are back on the bench, and you'll see what I've done. So I put them on this plastic lid. There's a little bit of Rodico, a bit like blue tack. And I've suspended them away from the edge. Applied it as you saw on the microscope. And the reason I use this lid is because I can turn it over and I can examine how well I think I've done. We're just looking to see if it's overran and gone over the hands. To me, that looks pretty good. So what I'm going to do now, of course, let it dry. We'll have a look at it once it's dried, and then we'll fit them back on to the watch. Okay, we are now 24 hours on, back on the microscope, and we can see the finished result. Here we go. So as you can see, they have set quite nicely, and they're absolutely perfect in the apertures they've got there. No overlapping at all, because sometimes, like I say, it can ooze out. So I am actually very, very pleased. Of course, I clean the hands up a little bit as well, so you can still see that I've got some of that corrosion, but I've tidied them up as best I can. Right, before I fit the hands, just wanted to quickly say, because I didn't say it actually on the microscope, so you want to check the back of the hands to be sure that the layer that you've put on is nice and even and it hasn't got big lumps sticking up, because what happens is when you install them, certainly if you've got that problem with your minute hand, is it will go to the hour hand and it'll actually catch on the hand itself, and then it'll stop the watch. So a nice thin even layer is all that is required. To fit the hand with the day date watch, all we have to do is we have to wind it on. This has got a quick set function, but we need to make sure it's going to change at 12. And to do that, I'm just going to wind the watch. And I was talking too much, so I've gone straight past it. So we'll wind again. So you can just see it's just coming in. There. So I've got to offer them up. I have a little pushing tool to fit them, and just want to line it all up with 12 o'clock. Then once I've pushed it on, I want to check to make sure it is sitting nice and parallel. It's not sticking up at the front or the back. And that one's pretty good. So you want to get that in position. Come down as parallel and as straight as I can. And then once again, I need to check. I need to check that they're not touching. And they are at this point. It's always difficult to do this job on camera, because the camera is where my head would normally be if I'm working on watches and I'm not filming. Still not quite happy with that, so I'm just adjusting it slightly. It does want to stick up a bit at the front. There we go, that's better. And then before we put the second hand, we should just wind on. So we want to see how close we've got to 12. Seiko themselves will give you a tolerance of plus or minus 10 minutes. There we go, 1 minute 2 or thereabouts. So that's pretty good going. So now it's just the second hand. A second hand for most people who are not used to this is a really difficult maneuver. You have a very small tube on the hand. It's got to sit on the pinion. And I might struggle today because my eyesight's not so good. And there we go. Just need to press it a little bit. And then the acid test is always to make sure it's just passed cleanly the minute hand, because sometimes it can just catch on it, it'll either stop, or sometimes it just catches a little tiny bit and you wouldn't notice it at first. What you then tend to see is it will lose time over a period of hours or even days. It's losing a minute here and a minute there, and that's just because it's catching and losing a second each time it goes round, something like that. So the hands are on, so I just need to recase the movement and then we can see how good the loom is. Okay, here is the finished watch. Well, of course, that's not the finished watch, is it? But that's the sort of watch I would expect to see on Vince's channel. This is the sort of thing he could probably fix. And it's full of electronics. It's probably from the 80s or the 90s. And it talks to you in a really interesting synthesized voice. That really does take me back to my childhood, I have to say. So anyway, let's cut with that one and bring in the proper watch that we've been working on. So here it is. And it's a shame the light doesn't give it justice, because this dial is really, really cool. So all we're going to need to do now is charge the loom, and then we can show just how good or bad that job has been. So I need to charge it with UV light. That's the best way to do this. So I'll give it a bit of charge. Hit the lights. And there we go. Cameras always struggle to focus on these, but you can see they're definitely shining brighter than the indices, but the colour does actually match quite well. So they will be quite bright probably for around 15 to 20 minutes, and then they will fade down and probably give you a few hours. There we go. The camera really can't focus. That's typical. But there we go. That's the hands loomed. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed me showing you how to loom watch hands. So all that's left to be said is have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Vince, thank you very much for letting me be part of the Christmas special of the YouTube Fixers. It's a great series, and I look forward, Vince, to seeing what you are going to break next year and what you actually might fix. So onwards and upwards, 2022. Back over to you, Vince. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mike. What I like about that part there, and also all your other videos, is you explain things in such a way that even if you're not in the trade, it inspires confidence in the person watching you, which is a real skill. So thank you. That is it for the Christmas edition of the YouTube Fixers. So a massive thanks to all the channels that made this video possible here today. Of course, they will all be linked down in the description down below. So if you like what you see, head on over there, subscribe and show some support. If you like the My Mate Vince Merry Fixmas merch here, then you can again check the description down below, and there will be a discount code there as well. That is it. I wish you all a massive, 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 massive Merry Christmas and an extremely happy and healthy 2022. I will see you all very soon. Take care, everyone.